Now, what does this have to do with the book of Daniel? Well, notice the bottom blocks here in this arch are matching. They're both red. And then you go up one level, we have two matching yellow bricks, followed by two matching blue ones, and we got this pretty green block here on the top. Well, in the Hebrew Bible, there is a literary device quite a lot like this called a chiasm. And Daniel 2 through 7 is one big chiasm where chapter 2 matches chapter 7, the base of this little arch. And then chapter 3 in yellow is going to match chapter 6. And then chapter 4 is going to match chapter 5. And I guess in Daniel 2 through 7, we don't really need this green block, but it kind of holds it all together. So I'm going to put it back. And then I'm going to put this whole arch over here on the shelf. There we go. That's a good place for it, isn't it? Well, this chiasm over my shoulder is just one part of one of the most meticulously structured and designed books in the Old Testament, the book of Daniel. Take a look at this chart I developed for the book of Daniel. 12 chapters in this book, 1 through 12. And the chiasm, the little Lego chiasm, is here in chapter 2 through 7 with matching sections A, B, C, C, B, A. Hello, by the way, my name is David, and I have made hundreds of charts just like this to teach in the classroom here in the Philippines. That's where I'm at right now, the Philippines, where I serve as a missionary. You can download this chart in the description below so you can follow along, and then be sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on next week's free chart. This chart is about the amazing structure of the book of Daniel. Now, what part of Daniel are you most familiar with? For me, it's all the exciting stuff in the first half of the book. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego thrown in the fiery furnace, and Daniel into the lion's den in chapter 6, that crazy statue in chapter 2. Well, this is actually a valid literary division of the book, a division by genre. We have 1 through 6 is narrative, and then 7 through 12 is visions. Now, I call this a valid literary division because the text of Daniel itself affirms this division by its use of pronouns. Let's see if you can figure out what I mean by that. Now, this is a little bit tricky. Let's go to chapter 1. In the 3rd year of the reign of Jehoiakim, Nebuchadnezzar came to Jerusalem and besieged it. Then in verse 6, he is going to take Daniel and his 3 buddies to stand before him in Babylon. But in verse 8, Daniel resolved that he would not defile himself with the king's food. Okay. Good job. Go Daniel. Now in chapter 2, Nebuchadnezzar, he's going to have some dreams, and he's going to call before him Daniel. Arioch brought Daniel before the king. But now, this is all the first half. The second half, things are going to shift a little bit. Let's go to chapter 8 and look for the use of pronouns to describe Daniel. In the 3rd year of King Belshazzar, a vision appeared to me, Daniel, after the vision that appeared to me at the first. Daniel is referred to in the first person. Again, in chapter 9, in the 1st year of Darius, I, Daniel, perceived in the books the number of the years that Jeremiah wrote about in chapter 25 and 29 of that book. You see, we've shifted from 3rd person in 1 to 6 to 1st person here in 8 through 12. But there's another layer to the structure of this book. Now, what language is the Old Testament written in? Hebrew. Yes, you're 99% correct, except for a couple chapters in Ezra, some diplomatic letters, and Daniel 2 through 7, which are written in Aramaic. Why does this matter? Well, a couple of reasons. One, who spoke Aramaic? Well, everybody spoke Aramaic, but who spoke Hebrew? Only the Jews. Therefore, chapters 2 through 7 is material which contains God's plan for all the nations. But Daniel 1 and Daniel 8 through 12 records contents with special relevance to the nation of Israel. Second reason why language is significant. The use of Aramaic here is a literary marker which sections off chapters 2 through 7 as an independent unit meant to be studied as a whole. And what happens when you study 2 through 7 as a whole? You discover these Legos. Let's return our attention now to the chiasm of 2 through 7. Now, our Legos tell us that chapter 2 matches chapter 7, 3 and 6, 4 and 5. Can you think of any parallels between these chapters? Well, does this help? We got chapters 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. I threw this diagram together for a class that I teach on the book of Daniel. Now, if you want a deep dive on individual books of the Bible, you should check out a free course I've developed in the description below. This crazy diagram helps us spot a few parallels, doesn't it? Take a look at 3 and 6. We got poor Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. They are told to bow down to Nebuchadnezzar's statue, and when they refuse, they are thrown into a fiery furnace, but an angel saves them, and they are promoted afterwards by decree of Nebuchadnezzar. In chapter 6, Daniel is thrown into a lion's den because he refuses to pray. However, he is saved by an angel who closes the mouth of the lion, and after he is released, he is given a promotion. But look how meticulously the author of Daniel has crafted these narratives. I got Daniel 3 on the left and Daniel 6 on the right. Look what Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego tell Nebuchadnezzar. They say that our God whom we serve is able to deliver us. And then Darius is going to declare to Daniel, after Daniel spent one night in the lion's den, he says, "O Daniel, servant of the living God, has your God whom you serve been able to deliver you?" Yes, he is able to deliver you. And then each of these kings, Nebuchadnezzar and Darius, is going to issue a matching decree. Look down in 329 and 6:25. Take a look at this. Nebuchadnezzar says, "Therefore I make a decree that any people, nation, or language that speaks anything against the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego will be torn limb from limb." And then Darius, in chapter 6, he makes a decree to all peoples, nations, and languages, saying that they should fear and tremble before the God of Daniel. What about chapters 4 and 5? Well, in these chapters, we see 2 Babylonian kings are humbled. And how are they humbled? Well, Nebuchadnezzar, here in chapter 4, he is given the mind of a beast. And Belshazzar, after he throws a party with the temple vessels, he sees writing on the wall saying, "Mene, mene, tekel parsin," meaning, "Your days are numbered." What was the purpose of these kings' humiliation? Well, we're told in chapter 4. You see, Nebuchadnezzar, his mind was changed to that of a beast to the end that he may know that the Most High rules the kingdom of men and gives it to whom he will. Now, this worked for Nebuchadnezzar. He was humbled, but not so much here in chapter 5 for his son, Belshazzar. He did not humble his heart, and therefore, verse 30, that very night, Belshazzar was killed. Remember, this is the Aramaic section of the book of Daniel, where God's purpose is contained for the nations. He will humble the proud kings of the nations, and he will cause them to lead their people in the worship of Yahweh. What other plans does God have for the nations, and what nations in particular? Well, how many beasts come crawling out of the sea in Daniel chapter 7? And how many parts is the statue made out of in Daniel chapter 2? Well, 4, representing 4 kingdoms, Babylon, Persia, Greece, and Rome, which will eventually be crushed by a stone that is cut without human hands, when the Son of Man returns from the right side of the Ancient of Days to rule over the kingdoms of this world alongside his faithful saints. You see, the book of Daniel is all about the kingdom. God is on the throne, and he rules the kingdoms of men today. Now, if it doesn't seem like it because the people of God are persecuted by the kingdoms of this world, that is only because God has decreed that his people would be persecuted like his son. Daniel, with its amazing literary structure, speaks more to persecution than any other book in the Old Testament. Now, do you know which book in the New Testament shares this focus? 1 Peter. You can check out a video about the hardest verse in that book here.